Hello, everybody out there. All
Hey,
right,
what's
how's
up?
it going?
How
How's
are
it
you,
going,
Norman?
Jeff?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to talk onboarding and other stuff.
Yes. This one is so important. Onboarding. It's one of those things that, like, you hire someone, great. They're gonna. I interviewed them. They know how to do the job. Great. I'll see you later. But it's so not that. And if you don't get this onboarding right, you're essentially setting up that employee to fail, right?
100%. Let's tell a little bit about who we are, what we do, why we're here. Go for it.
Okay, so we are RCS Professional Services. We are an IT MSP here in New York, Atlanta, Florida, California, all kinds of places. And we are here to help you guys with your technology. Why are we here, Jeff?
We're here to help clients with our technology. What?
To
What were
make
you
our
going to
clients spectacular,
say?
driving client success.
Through
What is it?
innovation, relationships, and a company culture built by empowered employees. So we really love what we do. We love helping our clients, and onboarding is one thing that we deal with. Onboarding and offboarding. It's one thing that we deal with on a regular basis. As Norman was saying, it's really important to get it right, especially if you have a lot of employees coming in and out of the organization, especially companies that are growing very quickly. You want to have a well-oiled machine when it comes to onboarding. You want the
Yes.
experience to be great. You want the timing to work out. You want the employee to have a good first impression. You want management and leadership to have, be happy with what's going on. So I guess we could just jump into it
Wait,
unless you want to
no,
start
before
somewhere
we
else.
jump in, a little bit of housekeeping.
Oh, there you go.
Throw your comments and questions into the chat. I'm watching the chat and I can see what's happening. If you want to ask a question, I can check it out. I will answer it. Actually, let me get on the. Now I'm on the right chat thing. I was on the other one. And if you want to come on the show and ask your question and go back and forth with us, that's great. You can do that also. Alex is going to put a link into the chat. If you just click on that link, it will bring you on the show. But when you do that, make sure to mute the LinkedIn Live, because otherwise there'll be a whole bunch of echo and stuff. But yes, you can come on this and we can hear your thoughts on it and ask us questions and all that. Otherwise, throw your comments and questions in the chat and we will get to them. So without further ado, let's do this. Okay, so I know, because Chloe and I deal with account relations. I know when a client is having problems with onboarding, and I know it's so much pain. It's like it's crazy how much this first thing that you do with an employee hurts so much if it's wrong. And we've had to work to get it correct with some of our clients who has special needs in their onboarding, and we'll get to that. But so I said one thing. One, if it doesn't, why is this so important? Well, for one, if you don't get this right, you sit a person at a desk and the guy's got nothing. His computer doesn't work. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea how to, I don't know, get the bathroom open. Who knows what? He has no idea how to do anything, right? There's onboarding. These things need to happen. And if it doesn't happen, the person's lost, right?
100%. I think we even like the most important part is probably communication and aligning expectations, right? Like what should the management expect in terms of when that user could be up and running? Obviously, it's based on several factors. Is equipment required? Is it not? Which we're going to talk about the challenges and opportunities that those things bring. But having an expectation, right? How long does it take to actually onboard an employee? What should they expect? And a lot of the communication comes from HR, or if you don't have HR, COO, CFO, or whoever they work with. But getting that information in a timely manner so that IT can turn it around and provide a great experience. So I think communication and getting aligned with expectations is probably the most important thing. Obviously, getting it right is really important, but if they're just expecting that they can have someone onboarded within a couple of hours after the request, sometimes that's not always so reasonable, especially if equipment is involved. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like normally, you have lead time on when someone's starting, right? You've interviewed a bunch of people. Great. Okay. That guy's going to start. Person. Great. Okay. You hopefully have sometimes, not today, right? And you should use that time to get everything right before this person walks in
Right.
or walks into their living room and starts working from home. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, so work from anywhere, like Norman was saying, work from home. Obviously, a lot of changes have happened in the past several years, and they're still happening. Seems like there's a shift to go back to the office at this point, but at the very least, it seems like everyone is getting a laptop and not a desktop anymore, and they are going to work from home, if not, some of the time or most of the time. They're definitely going to be some sort of work from anywhere situation. At least with our clients, that's the way we see it for the most part. So one thing that I think we've developed and invested in, and obviously it's a continual evolution of continual improvement, but having forms created. Could you talk about the value of forms that we've had, Norman? And I know it gets sophisticated, integrates in our ticketing system and stuff like that, but what would you say has changed since we implemented forms? And why don't you say a little bit about what that works like?
No, so it goes the whole onboarding goes so much better now that we've implemented forms. It used to be, right? Hey, we got an email in our ticketing system. Hey, we just hired this guy. Can you set him up? And then we'd go and look at our checklist, because by the way, checklists are key on this whole thing.
For sure.
But we would realize, oh, we didn't have a whole bunch of information. And we would have to go back to the client and say, okay, we need this, 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 and this, and this, and this, right? And then the client would get back to us. Now we kind of slow down the process. Onboarding forms take care of all of that, right? So once we get going with a client, one of the things we try to figure out is, okay, when you hire a new person, what do they need? Which systems do they need? What do they need access to? Everything to do with technology that we take care of. And we'll then take a look at, and we'll build a checklist. Again, checklist is key. If there is no checklist here, it's going to get screwed up. And this should not only be a technology checklist like we have, but there should be a checklist out there of what you do in your company when you hire somebody. It's going to touch everybody. It's going to touch finance. It's going to touch payroll. It's going to touch HR. It's going to touch everybody. We're dealing with technology here in this webinar. And so we'll create that checklist, which we follow because that's the Bible here. And we take a look at that and we say, okay, great. If this is our checklist, then what do we need to know from the client? And we build an onboarding form. And it's great. Now that we've got an onboarding form, clients don't send in that, hey, we're hiring this guy on Tuesday, I'll see you later, and then there's 600 emails back and forth. No, they go to our portal, and I'm pointing to that screen because that's where I've got that website on. They go to our portal, and it gets asked a whole bunch of questions like, who's the person? When are they starting? Give us some, do they need an email account? If they need an email account, do they need security? Do they need this? Do they need access to these systems? Will they need access to company folders? How about an Adobe license? How about things like what's going on in your business? I don't know. Are you a restaurant and you need a Resi account? Does he need a Triple Seat account? Do you guys use Zoom? Do you use Slack? Do they need a Slack license? Slack account? Right, so we'll take a look at everything that we know that needs to be created, and we'll put it on the form saying, hey, does the person need this, what kind of access here? And I know this sounds like it's a mile-long form. It's actually not. It's quick. It takes about, I don't know, 2-3 minutes to fill out, and it's just a bunch of yes and no's, like, oh, do they need a Resi account? Yes, great, I'll see you later. And then at the end is the equipment one. Are they going to use a new computer? Or are they going to use an existing computer? And from there, we'll get this thing that says, hey, a ticket gets created in our ticketing system. By the way, key to have a ticketing system on this one, because well, for us in technology, is key to have a ticketing system because
Sure.
they've got to keep track of it. You got to keep track of the request that came in. So again, the form is going to create the request. So everything that got put into the form is going to get put into the request. Tech picks it up. Great. He knows exactly what to do now. There's probably not another email going back to the client. He's got everything, including start date and whatever else is needed. And then they'll use that ticket to create that user. And when they're done, great. They know exactly what to do with the client because we've got it on the checklist. So all
Right,
comes
and
together.
we're given the procurement side of the business time to get, like we said, if there's a computer, Norman mentioned maybe there's a need for an Adobe package or suite or a Salesforce license or whatever it is. Sometimes those things have to be sourced because a lot of companies like to stay at their limit so they don't overspend on cloud. But there are a lot of prerequisites that need to happen in order for the tech to be able to onboard the employee, right? So like we mentioned, a lot of the procurement that's happening now is very much virtual software as a service. Yes, we're going into portals and buying licenses for them, but we do have to allocate that and spend time and resources getting that before the tech could even work on it. But now with the work from anywhere, I'd like to touch on procurement and company issued devices and stuff like that because we've seen a huge change in terms of, right? So the cloud adoption is here. Everyone is using, for the most part, software as a service. Yeah, we do have some clients with some servers, which we're, hopefully going to be done with soon and shifting everything to the cloud, if not at least Azure for infrastructure as a service. But what do you feel? What are your thoughts, Norman, on, company issued devices versus, since we're cloud anyway, why can't they just use their own computer? Like, what do you see as potential challenges or opportunities here?
Oh yeah, so you got company. So all right, it all depends on so many different things. Okay, so it's a company-owned device. That thing needs to get set up, right? If it's a new device, then great. All kinds of apps and stuff need to get installed on there. And if it's a machine that already existed, then it needs to come on, and then it needs to be set for. I'm actually, by the way, trying to get onto the chat. I've actually never been on the chat during these things, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm like, I want to get on the chat today. So yes, important. If it's company-owned device, if it's a new device, things need to get installed on it. If it's a machine that's already there, you're thinking, oh, great, the machine's already there. It's the last person was doing the same job. This is going to be easy. You just need to sign in. Oh, no. You sign in, and then there is some setup that needs to happen for that user. And then if they're working at home, that's a whole interesting other bunch of challenges because that machine might go straight to the house, might go from, who knows, the distributor straight to the house. And that machine, again, needs to get set up. But wait, before we go even further into that, I want to talk about procurement a second because I remember when we didn't have procurement. And it's so key. Like if you're a company and you've got to deal with procurement, I'm so happy that we have this for our clients because it can be such a pain. You got to go figure out which machine and which accessories and go find it and buy it.
Docking stations, monitors, keyboards, and you want to keep consistency across the organization and track everything. So yeah, definitely having a procurement process with tracking and identification is super important. Again, it adds to the lead time of onboarding the user, but we also didn't even mention now with work from anywhere, if you're offboarding an employee, now you have to worry about asset tracking and, getting that machine back to redeploy to the next user and stuff like that. So really it creates a whole set of challenges around asset tracking for existing computers, especially if they're working from anywhere, sourcing new machines for new employees, and then setting them up, right? So there's a lot that goes into this. You think just onboarding an employee is just like, yeah, let me onboard the employee, right? So if you're going to use company issued devices, then you have to deal with all these challenges. And we'll talk through some cool ways that you could deal with it. But what about bring your own device, right? I hired John Smith, and why he has a Mac or he has a Windows or a Chromebook or whatever he has. Why do I even need to give him a computer? What do you what do you think on this? Where do you stand on this, Norman? I know you're the technologist in the company.
Well, so of course, security is running through my mind right now. Oh my God, he's going to use his own computer. I've got my files on his computer. I don't know what else is this computer is being used for. Who knows? Kids playing games on it. I don't know. There's so many different things that can go on that sort of thing. Not to say it can't be done, just needs to be done right. Right?
So bring in your own device. It is an option, right? Like Norman was saying with the cybersecurity hat on, you are potentially exposing the firm to risks or threats if they're using their own computer, because you can't ensure what, virus protection is on there, what endpoint detection and response is on there. That's a big thing. We don't need to go too much into security now, but when IT does not control what the machine has in terms of what's installed on it, what can't be installed on it, and stuff like that, then the company is being potentially opened up or exposed to certain threats, right? Especially if they're using legacy stuff like VPN to servers and stuff like that. So you really want to get your policy defined. Definitely talk to your IT provider, whoever it may be, and establish whether you want to have employees can only use company issued devices or not. You will be able to secure your operation better. You'll be able to minimize your risk and harden your security posture if you're using your own machines. If you're not, your company is potentially exposed. I'm happy that we switched to that. I don't know how many years ago, where every employee, no matter where they're working from, they're using one of our devices with our IT policies, our controls, our safeguards, our protections, and we know that we're in a much safer place to, prevent cybersecurity threats, which everyone reads the newspaper or online every day. There's always something to write. CrowdStrike took down Delta Airlines a couple of weeks ago, along with a lot of other companies. So, so that's the procurement piece, right? But how do we speed up procurement, like in terms of when we do issue new devices?
Oh my God. So there's some great technology around this. Things like autopilot. So Microsoft's got this awesome piece of technology, which is you can set the Microsoft Cloud to do a bunch of setup on the computer once the thing logs in. So this is the situation where client needs a machine. It's going out to, I don't know, Wisconsin. We talk to the distributor. That thing gets shipped directly to Wisconsin. Again, has not touched our office, has not touched our hands. It's gone straight to the client. The client logs in and boom, it realizes, he logs in with his company account, and it immediately realizes, and when I say it, I mean the computer and Microsoft Cloud, realizes, oh great, this is a computer that's for that organization. And it proceeds to do a whole bunch of settings, a whole bunch of locking down, installing software, things like software it's going to need, antivirus, Office, getting their Outlook profile set up. All of this can happen without anyone touching it if you've got it set in Microsoft Autopilot. Autopilot, yeah. And then on the Mac side, Apple Business Manager. Jeff, you're all over Apple Business Manager as part of helping out the procurement guys, right?
So Apple Business Manager integrates with Intune and Autopilot. But like Norman said, it's really, there's some really powerful stuff here in terms of what you could do today with touchless. Like, I wouldn't say touchless because the end user touches it, but IT doesn't have to touch the machine, right? We could buy it or source it through Dell or Lenovo or Apple, whatever it is, ship it to wherever the employee is. They log in with their Office 365 account and boom, all their apps start loading. If it needs Adobe, it gets Adobe. If it needs, whatever it may be, anything and everything, that software that's going to load the bookmarks, the favorites in Edge or Chrome or whatever it is, right? We could configure that machine without IT touching it. So now you're saving so much time in terms of not having to bring it to the office for prep, redeploying it, shipping expense out to the user. Now you're talking at least a week, unless you're paying for super duper, FedEx P1 and all that stuff, which really gets expensive. So it's really just a much more efficient way of doing things, right?
Oh
I mean,
my
it's pretty amazing what Microsoft built here.
And then if you take the machine and you join it to Intune, Now, not only did that setup go easily, but you can now keep managing that machine. So Intune, it can look for things like, hey, does this machine have antivirus on it? Is this machine hard drive encrypted? It can look for things like that and deal with it if that machine suddenly turns on and doesn't have something. Or you can change what you want to require machines to have or be configured with at any point. So if you have something like Intune, Microsoft's Intune, their mobile device manager, and when I say mobile device manager, this is the worst name ever in the history of computers at this point because it's every device. It should be every device manager or just device manager. It can do all these things, all these management things. So getting it all set up and ready to go and getting all this configured can do great things for procurement,
Right.
for onboarding, and for continued life and use of the computer.
And we just touched on another reason why issuing company-issued devices or having employees work on company-issued devices, being able to do things like load a mobile device manager, to make Norman happy, a device manager, right? Where you can control policies, define what can get installed, what can't. You can't just load this mobile device management software on, a new employee's home computer because that's just not happening. They're not going to allow it. And it's not, it's not the way it's done.
But Jeff, is there an even easier way than getting a personal computer?
Is this a trick question?
Yeah, not a trick question.
You're making me think now. Oh, you're talking about infrastructure as a service, desktop as a service?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Let's go. We have a few clients using that. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's great. So with Azure, with Microsoft's Azure and VDI or Windows 365, it's great. You have a machine in the cloud. So we have some clients that their computer, wherever, we don't really care about that computer because that computer is going to just connect to Microsoft's Azure. And their computer, the thing they use for work, is actually a machine in Azure. So they log on to Azure and they are essentially remote controlling a piece of the cloud, and that piece of the cloud is their machine. So I would go and click on my Microsoft Azure VDI or Windows 365 machine. It opens up on my screen and it looks exactly like I'm using my own Windows computer. That's exactly what it is, except I'm remotely controlling something in the cloud. Why is this great? Because all IT would need to do is provision the machine, which is just a few clicks, and the machine gets provisioned in the cloud, and it's always ready for the user. The user can connect from whatever machine he wants.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of good use cases for this. One of them that I've noticed is we do have clients that work multinational, and procurement's just not as easy in these faraway places, Philippines, India, whatever it is, or less control of it at least. And you really don't need to think about what is sitting on the employee's desk, right? They're just connecting with an iPad, a Mac, a Chromebook, a Windows laptop, a Windows desktop. They just need an internet connection. You could even be an iPhone, whatever it is. Not that I would want to work on an iPhone and a desktop, but you can. And it's kind of like, for those that know, like TeamViewer, go to my PC, log me in. You're remote controlling another computer in another place. And that computer happens to be living in Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud infrastructure as a service data centers all over the world. So you're getting the fastest connections, the best computers. You could get whatever computer you want. You do have to pay a certain fee for different machines. And the faster they are, the more money they are. But they can be shared. It's called desktop as a service. And you could have 10, 20, 30 people using a single computer. And depending on the functions that they're using, they could have servers right beside them. So you could have on-prem applications, or they could be cloud all the way. But long story short, it's secure. And if you want to not have to deal with procuring machines and everything that we spoke about earlier, that's one way to just not even have to, right? And it provides a great amount of security and, just control. It's really great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So another thing we mentioned with the work from anywhere, which came into my mind, I forgot to mention, is with the mobile device management, when you do have that control, if you are procuring devices and managing the fleet, What happens when you offboard someone, right? I mean, now if they have their own computer, back to risk and security, right? If they loaded Outlook, if you allowed Outlook to be loaded, right? All those emails, all those contacts, all those calendar entries are now on, John's home computer. Even though you disabled his account, he still has access to that data, right?
Yeah. Problematic.
So another reason to say let's just use company issued devices, right? Or the alternative that Norman just mentioned, right? Desktop as a service, very, very powerful stuff. So we went into a lot around, right? We got the forms, right? Forms are key. You eliminate back and forth, reduce the lead time, reduce human error, set up expectations. When is the employee started? Where does his computer need to ship to? What groups does he need to be a part of? What files does he need to get access to? What applications does he need, right? Then we got feed that into the ticketing system so the text can avoid human error and make sure they're following a checklist. And then, transpose that on our internal checklist of all the things that we do when we create a user, all the back end functions and features that we need to enable and boxes that we need to check, right? We mentioned procurement and maybe no procurement if you have desktop as a service. What about like applications, right? Like I know that our bill for cloud software as a service, right? We got Xero, we got Bill.com, we got HubSpot, we got ConnectWise, we got, I don't know how many things it is, but I think it's like double or triple the rent expense in our company at this point. I know that bills get really expensive, but my point is it's not endless, but we're talking about a good like 10 to 20 applications per user at least, right? At this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just imagine having to create an account in every single one of those things.
But what about securing them? Like, what could you touch on the challenges of like, okay, now that we have this 10 or 20 thing, right? You mentioned Slack, Adobe. We mentioned so many things already, right?
Right.
How can we simplify, right? Avoid IT human error in terms of the person has rights to access these applications or they don't, right? Let's just touch on the power of, single sign-on. Like we've been
my favorite thing, single sign-on.
It's so key for making the onboarding experience. It's just so important because let's talk about passwords and remembering multiple passwords. You've dealt with this, so I know, and I know you've helped our clients achieve, put this under their belt, and they're so much happier for it. Just talk about this.
Oh my God, it's so great. So yeah, it used to be that we would. So when we hired someone in RCS, I was the one who was making all those accounts. And I would have to go and I would have to make every single account in every single different system and set the passwords in each of the systems. Some of the I'd be able to set. Some the guy we were hiring, he would have to log on to my machine and set the password. And it was and I'd have to write out an email that had all kinds of information in it. And then SSO came around. SSO stands for single sign-on. It's a user's dream and it's an administrator's dream. On the user side, you're essentially using one account to log into all of those systems. So whenever I log in to our ticketing system, I'm actually using my Microsoft account. Our ticketing system forwards that login to Microsoft. I log in using my Microsoft account. That's one username and one password. And then I'm in on the ticketing system. Same for all of our other systems. Everything that supports SSO, we've got configured, which means that anytime I go to any of these systems, I can easily log on to it by just using my Microsoft login. And it's even better because a whole bunch of these things on my computer, it realizes I'm already logged into Microsoft. I just did it 1 second ago for a different service. And great, I don't even have to log in because it realizes, hey, this guy's already logged in. Let him through. Awesome. Great. And it's not, and you might be thinking, oh my God, that sounds like a security nightmare. Oh, no. It's better security. Because you know what? The guys that write our ticketing system, they're not writing a security software. They're writing a ticketing system. They think if you get the username and password right, you're done. Great, you're in. But that's not what Microsoft's looking at. We've got a whole bunch of Microsoft security on our login. So when I log into Microsoft, not only is it hitting me with an MFA, And not only is that MFA saying, hey, Norman, you were trying to log into this thing from this place, it shows me a map, sick. I've got a couple of numbers that I'm in. Not only is it doing all that, but it's also looking at things like, where did he log in from? Where did he log in from 5 minutes ago? Did he go from New York to LA in 5 minutes and that's impossible travel? Is it a new machine? Is he logging from some weird VPN? Is he on an anonymous browser? Is he using an anonymous IP? All these weird things that a hacker would do, Microsoft's looking at. You know who's not looking at that on a login? The ticketing system. They just want your username and password and you're in. But no, because the ticketing system has forwarded me to Microsoft for this login, that means that all of that security is on that login. So if you're thinking, oh my God, that sounded like there was no security, there's even more security, which is great. So that's what's great for the administrator, and that's what's great for the user. The administrator gets all the security he wants, and the user gets an easy logon. All he has to do is remember one username and password. And in fact, if it's Microsoft, you can go passwordless, and you don't even need to type in your password. Okay, so all of that, right? I said all that.
Well, how does passwordless work? Because that sounds scary to some people that don't know what that means. That means no password?
So when I go to log into something, I put in my whatever username, and I get hit on my phone with a notification saying, hey, Norman, you're trying to log into this. Type in the two numbers you're seeing on the screen. And it shows me two numbers on the screen. I type it in here. It does a Face ID to make sure I am me. And then it tells it, great, that person logged on and they're good to go. Notice, I never told you that I wrote in a password. I didn't type in a password. I just put my username in and it hit my phone with that notification. And then I had the Face ID. So I got all of that super secure without typing in a password.
That's awesome. That's so now, like, Microsoft, which is one of the clear market leaders in the security side of their business. A lot of prospects we run into don't necessarily leverage it, which is a shame, but their security is super powerful. It does need to be set up. There's all sorts of things you could do, like conditional access and ensuring that two-factor is turned on, and not even through a mobile device, but through an authenticator application, which has extra security and, turning things on, like Norman said, like impossible travel and sensing and detecting things.
It's great. We've layered on Blackpoint onto our logins, our Microsoft logins. I can't tell you how, this is so great at this point. So Blackpoint is watching our Microsoft login. So I can layer on security onto my Microsoft login. Do I have to layer it onto the 10 other systems? No, I just layer it onto my Microsoft login and it takes care of everything.
Which is really the beauty and the simplicity, right? You're, like Norman said, you're not logging into HubSpot, configuring the security stuff there. You're not logging into Dropbox, configuring the security stuff there, right? Everything is redirected to Microsoft. You have to just do a single, configuration on your security, right? So what's the benefits? Prevents human error. But go ahead.
We had a client say to us, hey, we want people to be able to use this application, but only from the office. And so that client turned to that company, the company that made that software, and said, hey, can we lock this down to our office? And the company said, no, you can't lock it down to the office. We don't write that. We were at an HR. It was a health record system. We write a health record system. We don't do that. And I said, why don't you ask them if it can do SSO? And that company turned around and said, yeah, we can do SSO. And we're locking down that system to that office by the Microsoft login. So the Microsoft login, we've told it, hey, if they're logging into that system, they can only get in from that office, which is great. So now I've got the SSO to Microsoft. Microsoft's taking care of not only security now, but locking down the application to where they can use it from.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
And what happens if I want to lock that person out? I don't have to go to 16 different systems and disable them. No, I just disable their Microsoft account and boom, they are locked out.
Right. And then back to the computer even, right? With the mobile device management we mentioned, they could also be locked out of the computer if it's a company issued device, because it's using that same identity login, that same username and password to not only access all the applications, Salesforce, HubSpot, Adobe, Microsoft Office 365, Dropbox, whatever you may have, but also the machine on their desk is using that same Microsoft account. So you just turn on the policy.
And their cloud computer in Azure. Same Microsoft account.
Same Microsoft account. So
Okay, we've gone through all that.
right. I mean, look, so how it talks about onboarding, right, is number one is be organized, right? We mentioned the forms, mentioned the checklist, but also keep things simple. One way to keep it simple, I know this is getting a little crazy with tech, but like single sign-on, it's a way of keeping things simple. It's providing the user with a single username and password. It provides IT with a single place where a user could log in. Same thing with the procurement, right? We mentioned keep it simple. Use things like autopilot. Take advantage of these things that these features that the Microsoft ecosystem and others have to offer. Google as well, Apple as well. There's a lot of tools and stuff you could leverage. What was next on your mind?
Training, because now everything's set up. The guy's got a computer, he's got all these things. Now the person needs to be trained, right? You need to know how to do whatever they're going to do.
It's really the one of the biggest things, right? It's like training new employees. Like there's so many levels of training, but using the tools and in the way that the company sets up those tools, right? Even like I said, if you have a CRM or an ERP, every company operates it differently. There's different statuses, there's different procedures, right? So training the employees, very, very important on the tool sets, on your company way. How do we do it? I mean, I know we've invested a lot more in training new people, but this one's huge.
So this one's great because, like, all right, so I've mentioned some things that you guys out there may not have. You don't have a ticketing system. You don't need it because we have it. But there are your own tools that you can leverage to create your own training system. Like what we had done, we started to do, kind of came about organically. We had someone who was in Florida training someone who was in Denver, and they would just get on a Teams call and she would show them all kinds of things. And what they realized was, why don't we just record this Teams call and then we'll have it for whenever. And so it's great. They recorded all those Teams calls, and just from having done that training once, we've now started to build that library of training for that job function, which I'm telling you that because if you have Teams, you can do it. If you have Zoom, you can do these things. It's not hard.
Yeah,
you already have the tools to do it.
And you could get more sophisticated with learning management systems, but definitely the training component and making it scalable, right? Not one-on-one training every single employee, every single hire, right? You can save time, you can record things, you can keep them up to date, and really just give a new employee like access to all these, assign them their courses, whatever you want to call it, their videos, and then they could just come in on day one and be so much better as opposed to just being like completely just waiting for someone to train them and help them. Obviously, they're going to get hand-holding and extra special care. I know in our company culture, we're big on helping each other. But yeah, you want to set yourself up for success, and training is a huge part of it. We also leverage a lot with the vendor side too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So a lot of our software that we use to run our business, there's generally training academies, videos, things that we could leverage to onboard new employees and make sure that they're watching certain content or videos on how they use these tools and stuff like that. So I would say training is definitely a huge component of making onboarding, successful and easier, for sure. Good one.
Great. Like, just again, back to say Teams or Zoom, you can remotely control someone else's machine on there. So you not only can you remotely control their machine, so you can show them stuff, but you can have them share their screen. So each person can show whatever needs to be shown, and you can really walk a person through with them doing the clicking exactly what they need to learn, which is great. You used to be you have to walk over his desk, which is still great because you could sit right next to the person and show them the whole thing, but it doesn't necessarily need that in this day and age, which is great.
Yes, so we spoke about all these great ways to onboard. I mean, this is just coming to my mind. It's not so much about onboarding, but I know we've done a fair amount with employee monitoring software and getting information. This is more on the ongoing side than the onboarding side, but especially with work from anywhere, work from home, right? You want to know how productive your employees. There's many tools that you could potentially load and get data about how much time they're spending on their computer, where they're spending it, where they're spending their time, et cetera, et cetera. And you could really get great information if you're not really all working on one office, which is not the way it works so much these days. So there's a lot of tools out there. And then, I don't know, should we touch on offboarding? And we kind of touched on it in different areas of this conversation, but what's involved in offboarding an employee?
No, let's see. They've got stuff sitting on it. They've got their accounts, and there's data, and you need to work all this stuff out, right?
Yeah, sure. So if your organization has like done those two things, right? Issuing company devices and having single sign-on. There's a lot more things you could do. There's data loss prevention and stuff like that. We could talk about that, but if you have
Do a
those
whole
two main
webinar on
things,
data loss prevention.
if you have those two things and you need to offboard an employee and you want to, back to data loss prevention, make sure that they don't have access to your company data. It's pretty easy, right? You're just disabling their account in Microsoft if Microsoft is the identity provider. And you're using the mobile device management feature to basically say you can't log into this machine anymore, right? So they can't get into the cloud, can't get into the computer. What happens with offboarding when it's not, we're talking about a lot work from anywhere, work from home, but what about just plain old offboarding? You're in the corporate network, in the office, need to offboard an employee. What would you say the keys to successfully offboarding are?
A checklist. Can I start there? Checklist is the most important thing. I don't care.
Checklist and forms, right?
Yes.
There's things, right? Like, you want to forward their email to someone else. All right, who should it be forwarded to? Do you want someone to have access to their OneDrive, to their SharePoint, to their My Documents, whatever it is? Okay, who should have access to it, right? Checklists and forms are key, right? That's really where you're going to prevent a lot of frustration and a lot of human error. But hopefully you're onboarding more than you're offboarding, but offboarding is part of life, and it's something that we deal with all the time. We also mentioned, again, another reason for mobile device management. A lot of people are working from home and tracking those assets where they are in the world and getting them back to the office. Clients are spending $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 to set up an employee, sometimes even more, making sure that we could get those assets back. Using stuff like mobile device management helps us gain control of that stuff, right? So I think we covered a lot of things there. Is there more that we wanted to go over?
I think we covered a ton of stuff. I think people have got a good idea of where they're going with onboarding at this point, especially from the tech side of it, which is what we wanted to do here. So I hope people got a whole lot out of this, because that's what it's here for.
Yeah, if anyone's on and they want to just chat or ask a question, please feel free to ask. We do have some events coming up. Thanks for joining this one. We have, what do we have on the calendar, Norman?
Let's see. We've got a Microsoft
Loop. Microsoft Loop.
Yes, I'm so excited about this one because I use Loop all the time, and I've been trying to convince everybody else that Loop is awesome, because it is awesome. Loop is Microsoft's latest app, its latest productivity app, and it essentially lets you, in such an easy way, work on things at the same time with other people and put those little Loop components everywhere. You can put it in an email, you can put it in a Teams message, you can put it in Loop itself, and everybody can be working on it at the same time, and it's so great for productivity. So I'm going to do a webinar on Loop, which I'm very, very excited about. And what else we got?
Yeah, Norman's using Loop. I
use it all the time.
We got,
guys are like,
with one of our
Loop? I'm like, here, go type in this. You're going to see it's great. And they're like, oh, wow, this is so easy and great.
We have one of our strategic partners. Norman mentioned Blackpoint earlier, MDR, which is a way to secure your endpoints. So we will have on October 8th a webinar with subject matter experts explaining the benefits of MDR, evolutions of it, why it's much better than it was. So we're excited about that. We have a lot of clients that use it.
You are thinking, how do I know if there's a hacker in my systems? That's the webinar for you.
And then Yeah, we like to geek out as well. Fish and business themed for those fish lovers, Jamban lovers. December 10th. Hopefully, Fish will announce some tour dates for the end of the year. But yeah, if you like fish,
Mondegreen
if you
this
like
weekend.
Jamban, you just
Hello,
want to talk
Mondegreen.
business, Norman will be there. Maybe I'll hit you up over there. But
Can't
yeah,
wait.
and then we have other stuff in this Together Roundtable. Follow us on social media. Every Tuesday morning, there's a virtual networking event. We also started up a once a month in-person networking event in Marietta, Georgia. Follow us on social for that, and all sorts of other things we have
What's
coming.
the
So
Senior
please,
Citizen Council Community Expo? What's that?
I think that's something Morgan's working on.
Oh,
We don't
cool.
have yeah. So October 5th. Look out on our website for that, but that's actually being developed today. So, well, this was
That's
great,
terrific.
Norman.
All right.
Loved it.
Thanks for joining
Thanks for talking onboarding with me.
me. So fun. All right, bye, everybody.